May 9th. Sorry. Okay. Starting again. I'm going to call the Katuitt Fire District Prudential Committee, May 9th, 2022 Prudential meeting to order. I'll do a roll call. The clerk, Charlie Eager,
Charlie Eager, present.
Ray Perone,
Ray Perone, present.
Mark Lynch,
Mark Lynch, present.
Fran Parks, present. Thank you. Is there any public comment? Oh, I'm sorry. We stand for the public pledge of allegiance. No flag?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Sorry. Almost there.
Great. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic
Republic
for which it stands,
stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all. Thank you. If there's any public comment, we'll do it by chat. Do you see any public comment?
I do not.
Okay, thank you.
And Sean Brown has, no, Seth is still not here. Okay.
Okay. All right, so I'll turn it over to the treasurer for the budget review.
I'll try to do this without standing on my head
Good.
as I did last time. When Lisa gets it up, I'm going to begin with a kind of an overview and then go through the various departments. The budget this year proposes appropriations of $5,880,750. And that's a 14.6% increase. And that increase is composed of wages and benefits from all areas that total $3,311,635. That's only up 1% from last year. Wages, however, are up 4.4%. So benefits have come down. We'll talk about that later. Reoccurring expenses in all departments are $1,585,589, and that's up 4%, and that reflects the inflation that we'll be facing. A big change this year is we're proposing a contribution of $435,000 to stabilization, a $400,000 increase that we're setting aside for future use. There's a special article for a new ambulance of $335,000, which is for a new ambulance, in addition to the backup ambulance that we approved last year for $65,000. The remaining articles are flat. We'll go through them individually, but it's $248,000 this year, $269,000 last year. The funding for these will come from, number one, water rates, $1,007,094, which is a decrease of some, I don't have that number. It's a decrease of about $176,000. And that reflects the lower revenue from rates this year. We're using about 88% of what the water department projects for this year, which is the same percentage we used last year. Free cash, another source of funding, is up about 440,000. And it
Ray, can
provides-
I interrupt 1 second?
Sure.
Can you go back to what you just said about the water revenues being down? And you referred to a number of 88%. I'd lost you there.
It's 88% of the water department's estimate of their F24 revenue. And it is the same level that we included last year, 88% of their then estimate for fiscal 23.
So in other words, we're 88% is just kind of a number that we've picked just in case the revenues are not as high as projected.
Yes, it's an arbitrary number. And the reason I discount from what their estimate is, this goes into a state report as part of the recap. And if you don't meet that estimate, you create what's called a revenue deficit, which automatically gets added to the tax levy that year. So we always try to be conservative in estimating water and ambulance revenue.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
As I said, the free cash is up 440,000. We're using 95% of the 1,254,000 of certified free cash. It allows for a small carryover of 79,000 in the following year. We also have $16,000 that's provided from closing and completed articles of the water department security system. And we have $420,000 provided from new debt. As a result, the tax levy is just about level with last year at $5,906. And that results in a estimated flat tax rate of $1.70. However, it is just about a sure thing that the tax rate will be lower because valuations will be substantially higher than last year, with the consequence that the rate will probably go down, but the average per house may stay approximately the same, since the house value will go up proportionately. Okay, turning to the first functional area is our reserve budget, and we're going to keep that at 45,000, the same as last year. As you can see from the history, we don't use it every year. We used it in 19 and 21, but not in 20. And 21 was probably due to COVID, fallout from COVID and related. In the finance department,
Ray,
yes,
can I ask a question? What is the difference between the reserve fund and the stabilization fund?
reserve fund is under the control of the Prudential Committee. The stabilization fund is under the control of the district voters.
Thank you.
Turning to the finance department, the wages for the finance department overall show a decline of 1.5%. However, within that 1.5%, there's the elimination of a position, a 5% increase for the treasurer and the clerk, and a 9% increase for the assistant treasurer based on merit and increased responsibilities. In terms of the expenses, there's really two things that are going on. I've added $7,000, of which $4,500 is for the cost of the new debt. $2,500 is for the ongoing financial disclosure report that we submit to the SEC each year to support our debt. The biggest area is in the insurance area, particularly workers' comp and unemployment insurance. We are facing increasing unemployment insurance as the state attempts to catch up with the expenditures that they made during the COVID event. So overall, finance department is up 4.9%. And we are proposing I'm going to scroll down for me. We're proposing 3 articles. The largest is $17,000 for the digitation, if you will, of the records and/or their disposal. We will shred those records that we don't have to retain and digitize those records that we do have to retain.
Ray, are these Prudential Committee records, Fire Department records, Water Department, or all of the above?
All of the above.
Okay,
Water
thanks.
Department hasn't given me a list. Fire Department are still reviewing those. I do know what we'll be doing with the Prudential, but I know there's a substantial number of Fire Department records down there. But Sean has got to go through that and make his determination.
Thank you.
And the Water Department has not, is aware of that we're doing this. They have not decided what they're going to do. The second article is $7,400, which is for a new computer for myself and a cybersecurity review for the district, as recommended by our independent accountants and as events in today's world would suggest that we should do. And then finally, there's $5,000, which is the startup cost for the lockbox system that we'll tee into the new billing system that the Water Department is proposing. Turning to the Fire Department, are there any questions on finance? Turning to the Fire Department, wages reflect a 3.6% increase based largely on the union contract and the attendant overtime segments that we budget for each year. It also includes the new chief's contract, as well as an estimate for the deputy chief that we now are, that the fire commissioners are now engaged in a search for. Operating expenses are up 6.5%, with the major drivers there being energy and some maintenance. These are offset by declines in legal, professional, and administrative costs. Fire commissioners are proposing 2 articles. One, as I mentioned earlier, is the new ambulance for $345,000 that we will fund with debt, and purchasing control software that we're estimating at $5,000. We're in the process of reviewing outside systems to see if we can identify one within that budget that meets the fire chief's needs. Any questions? Turning to the Water Department. Water Department wages are up 9.5%, which is really not a wage increase. as much as it is oh, you're going to water. Excuse me. We're going to water. Water's wages are up 9.5%, and that's driven by longevity, merit, and COLA. Expenses are up 8.7%, and that's driven again by higher energy, maintenance, and computer costs. The department partially offset these increases with reductions in the actual cost for telephone, legal, the estimated cost for telephone, legal, and postage based on actual fiscal 22 running rates. The water department has 4 articles. There is a replacement truck required, which we will fund with debt. A electrical upgrade for pump stations for $65,000, which we're proposing to fund with free cash. Well testing and consulting for $20,000. And I believe that well testing is not the normal annual testing. That is metal testing, which
Yeah.
you do every 3 years.
That's
That's
for mercury
$20,000.
and iron.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, that's for mercury and iron, I believe.
Yes, mercury and iron. And that's for $20,000, which we will fund with free cash. And finally, there's the transition to the new customer billing and accounting system, which we're going to fund with free cash, and that's $16,500. The strategy that we're following is that on the computer expense line up above, we have the ongoing costs. And down below, we have the one-time costs, including maintaining the old system in parallel for the transition to the new system. Any questions in the water department? Now we'll talk about Freedom Hall. The Freedom Hall wages increased 1.8 thousand. There's a rather large percentage increase, but it doesn't, it's not meaningful, because what we are doing is providing a 5% increase in wages and returning to pre-COVID levels for the maintenance worker at Freedom Hall. Other costs are up 4.6%, again, driven by inflation and maintenance component costs. Alarm service and building supplies being in the same category as maintenance, and the alarm system is based on the anticipated bill for the following year, a $10 increase.
Can I interrupt for a minute, Ray?
I'm sorry,
I believe this year we're gonna have to renegotiate the contract with our snow plowing and lawn service. So I'm not sure how much that's gonna go up.
well, we're providing for a 5% increase that in this world that may not be sufficient. But maybe it will.
Okay,
See. Turning to street lights. Street lights are up $400, and that's for an anticipated increase in electricity. Library is up 3%. On the next slide, for general inflation, and then debt service on the next schedule will actually decline by 8.8 thousand. And that's due to lower principal payments as a result of the refinancing. We plan to fund that 240,000 with free cash and the balance with the tax levy. Any questions in that area? Employee benefits. Employee benefits will decline 62,000 as we shift to the lower required OPEB contribution. As you recall, we had been contributing the gross amount to OPEB. And as I discovered last year, we were overlooking the credit that we get for paying for retiree medical insurance out of our operating budget. That helps to reduce the liability. So when we looked at the actuarial report, it indicated that the actuarially determined contribution, ADC, was 141,000, but that we pay medical cost for retirees directly of approximately 100,000. So therefore, in order to maintain the same or the actuarially recommended decline in our liability, we need only contribute $40,000 to the OPEB trust. And it's fortunate that that timing happens this year, which offsets the rather large increase that the county retirement assessment imposed on the district this year and will impose in the coming years. One indication I had from the county was that assessment will be going up by a compound 5% over the next 5 years. In the medical insurance area, there was a 3% increase in premiums, and I've also provided for the addition of one new participant in that, and that would be the chief in that plan. We plan to fund that $886,000 with $300,000 of free cash and the balance 586, excuse me, thousand to be raised in the tax levy. And as you can see below, I've allocated that to each of the departments. Fire department accounts for 58%. Water department, 16%. Excuse me, I think fire department is 68%. Water department is 15%. District 1%, and retirees 15%. Any questions in the benefit area?
Ray, is that going to be part of your PowerPoint presentation?
The distribution,
Yes,
I can make it. It wasn't, but I can make it that.
that'd be great. I find this helpful information just on an informational basis, and I suspect others will as well.
Yeah, I'm tempted not to use the PowerPoint because it's going to be a Zoom meeting, and I'm not sure. I'll have to think about how well that PowerPoint would work in a Zoom meeting with people. If there are people who are interested in detail, it's only in this format. So I would, I'll have to take a look at it. But either way, Mark, I'll incorporate that in the presentation.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Ray, there's a question from John Fitzgerald. Does the debt in the budget need to be voted on? If so, by the Prudential Committee or at the Village Town Meeting?
Village Town Meeting. All of the articles presented here require approval of the district. I believe that debt is a 2/3 majority requirement for the article on new debt. And Charlie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe ongoing debt is a simple majority. Does that answer the gentleman's question? Well, let's assume so, and if not, he can come back. And we'll move on to the stabilization fund. I think you got one ahead of me. There we go. Stabilization increases $400,000. And the rationale for that increase is that in an environment of increasing interest rates, it should be more economical. Well, two things: raising the rates and knowing that we do have a substantial borrowing facing us with the school property in the coming year or two. So it would be prudent to set aside some funds to offset that and borrow today at a lower rate. And that's the reason we increased the general district stabilization funds by 400,000. Water department remains same as dictated by the number of meters as outlined in the bylaws. Any questions in this area? If not, the last item is the the space needs fund. And in this case, we are requesting an additional $28,000 to provide for a thorough environmental study rather than the survey that we had originally proposed. This should provide assurance to the district that there are no hidden costs or provide some insurance, hopefully complete insurance, that there are no hidden costs if the district is to acquire that property. That concludes my presentation. Are there any other questions? Fran, you're muted. Fran? Fran, you're muted.
Well, since she's muted, Ray, I have a question on the stabilization fund up 400,000.
Yes,
Does it allow unlimited size of that fund, or does it limit what we put in every year?
no, there's no limit.
So
Thank you.
I was gonna say, Ray, that the town has already drained the water and shut the boiler down permanently in the building.
Yes. So the operating expenses should be substantially less than we've projected.
Yeah. Any other questions for Ray?
There's a chat, hold on. Another question from Jason Fitzgerald on Nickerson Drive. He says,
The 75,000 is for the replacement service truck for the water department.
Thank you. Ray, I'm looking at the warrant and I have 24 financial articles.
24, I'm sorry, Charlie, you have what?
24 financial articles. The 28,000 is Article 24 on mine. So
My numbering might be wrong. I'll have to go back and check my numbering. So this, you're
Okay.
saying this is 24.
That's what I have, yes.
Let me make a note of that and make sure that mine ties to the warrant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I guess that's it.
Thank you. Mark, did you review the warrant and see if it was all, as you recalled, incorrect?
Yes, Charlie and I had a conversation earlier today, made a couple of minor typographical changes, but with those changes, we should be all set.
Okay, great. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is, do we want to send postcards out to the village again, announcing the election and the annual meeting? We did that last year, and the cost, total cost for the cards was $687. The total cost for the postage was $864, and for a total of $2,415.
Are there any contested races on the ballot, Fran, that you know of?
No. No.
Well, I do like the idea of people letting everyone know about the annual, well, both about the elections and about the annual meeting. It's more than I thought it would be, but I would be willing to go ahead with that.
So I'll accept, was that a motion to proceed and go ahead with?
That's
setting
a
the
motion to
postcards?
proceed and go ahead as described by you, Fran.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, great. Okay, we won't have a report on the policy advisory.
I'm sorry, this is Lisa. There's another question for Ray. Ray, the difference between the 80% of water revenue and 100% is just over 400,000, correct? If we collect the full amount, would we need the additional debt, or is there a timing difference? Can you walk us through why we don't use 100% again?
We don't use 100% because it is an estimate. And if we fail to meet that estimate, we pay an immediate tax increase penalty. So therefore, it is behoovent on us to be conservative in that. And also, the state may not let me do that. The state audits the numbers that I use for revenue projections. They're not privy to the water department estimate. So I doubt if they would challenge me this year. But they do watch it to make sure that you don't try to artificially reduce the tax levy. And in this case, I would be very reluctant to go any higher than 88%.
And if we collect the full 100%, would we have to take the debt, or is there a timing difference on that?
It's a timing difference. We won't know that we'll collect that debt, collect all that revenue, and wouldn't be able to use it for that acquisition until probably September of 2024. Because it would show up as a surplus that has to be certified by the state. And that certification usually takes about 6 months. You're muted.
Sorry about that. And if we used 100% with the surplus, there would be no surplus, so we wouldn't have to wait for the state. So aren't we kind of
Wouldn't have
creating
to.
our own issue?
We wouldn't have to what?
We wouldn't have to certify it with the state if we used the 100%.
We always have to certify free cash regardless of, I mean, the water department results are not the determination of whether we certify free cash or not. We certify free cash based on our results at the end of each fiscal year. And it's a composition of both over collected revenue and underspent expenditures.
There is one more comment from Chris Sexton from the Civic Association. She said, we plan to put up outdoor signs and include in Katuitt current newsletters to promote the election and the meeting, just so you know.
She might want to give me a call because we already have some signs to do precisely that.
Okay, Chris?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Do you want me to address Ken's question now or later?
Why don't we move on, and that can be addressed at
Yep.
when we do the budget with the annual meeting. So no report from the Policy Advisory Committee. I had a phone call from Mark Boudreau, our attorney, who'd had a phone call from the attorneys at the town office, town legal office, asking us if, inquiring if we'd like to join in a class action opioid producer lawsuit. I'm not exactly sure what this is about, but I think it's to see if we can recoup any of the costs incurred primarily by obviously the fire department with the ambulance of doing rescue calls for opioid overdoses. I have no idea what the material is that they're going to want, because nowadays most of the opioid overdoses are related to either heroin or fentanyl. Obviously not something that you're getting from the pharmacy or from a pharmaceutical company. But he's going to send us the paperwork to see what it would entail and get us as much information about it. And then we can decide principally with the fire department if they want to go ahead and, join that class action suit. And the only other thing I have is about the streetlights. We still don't have, we were supposed to have a meeting last week for questions about the request for proposals that the compact put out for a new streetlight maintenance company. And there were no phone calls. Nobody had any questions, so that was canceled. So I don't know. I think the RFP closes the end of this month. So then we'll be moving on to looking at the anybody who has submitted a proposal. So anything else from anyone?
Yeah, Fran, a couple of meetings ago, we had talked about what we tentatively call the long-term strategy committee, dealing with the potential issue of water filtration and or fire department, a new fire department. I'd like to go ahead and see if we can schedule the first of those. I'm happy to do that. I think we'd talked about having, at least at the first one, we'd invite all members of the two committees, three committees.
Yeah, I suppose we could do that in June. I'm not,
All right, I'll go ahead and see if I can start finding dates.
okay. So this is just to talk about long-range capital planning. Okay. So, going to schedule our next meeting is for the 23rd of May, which is the usual night that we have, it's the fourth Monday. And so we can go over the scripts and anything else that we need to be aware of for the annual meeting, which is the 25th. So I'll happily accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I seconded that. All those in favor. Thank you all very much. See you on the 23rd.